So this is my Mokwheels with its broken display. As you can see, it's pretty flimsy. It's not really the issue. The flimsy piece would be easy enough to replace. The issue is that Mokwheels says that you cannot just replace the mount, that you have to replace the whole display, which is absolutely ridiculous. The display works fine. It is really just this little piece here that is broken. And there's 4 screws here. Mokwheels claims that the display is all one piece and that there is absolutely no way to remove this without harming the wires. Of course, you could just dribble this off, remove this piece, put a new piece on. It's not going to be as watertight unless you put some silicone sealant or something on there, but you could absolutely do it. So instead of spending $70 to replace their crappy cheap plastic, I'm going to just put I'm going to connect this to a replacement mount, so that way I don't have to spend $70 to replace the cheap-ass plastic mount. Now, one thing you'll notice is I have a bunch of other bikes. No other bike is this shitty. So, after cutting it up a little bit, I've decided to change what I'm going to do. Instead of mounting it here, I'm going to cut these off. I'm going to put some threaded inserts into here, and I'm going to mount it directly to the mount. That way it's more secure and it's a cleaner mount. So I'm just going to start by this is a pretty flimsy plastic, so you don't really need much to get it off. These little snips, they're just for these are just hobby snips. They're more than sufficient. So what I'm going to do, so this is the replacement mount that I got. So I'm just going to mount this onto the display here. So I'm going to take some of these heated inserts, drill a couple of holes. But first I need to take this off to make sure that I don't drill too far into So there are electronics on the inside of this. So I'm going to want to use a smaller insert. And those inserts are great if you do 3D printing. If you want to connect two items together, they're really handy. No. And a screwdriver. So it looks like it has some glue, maybe. So the question is whether I can just remove this part or whether I have to remove the whole display. Looks like you can't actually just remove this part. Okay. All right. So this part is removable. And it looks like there's plenty of space here. So it looks like there's plenty of space to put some heated sinks and not have to worry at all about. So it won't hit the electronics at all. There's plenty of space. So now I'm going to get a marker, mark the spot I want to drill, where I want to put the threaded inserts for my screws, and then I can get to putting on the inserts, screwing on the new display mount, and then get it back on the bike. All right, so I'm going to mark this where I want the holes. I want it to be about even. So these are M3. It's a pretty thin plastic. So I'm going to use the thinnest one. So these are 3mm inserts. I'm just going to use these M3 screws. They fit right into these 3mm inserts. M3, as you can see. So I will be able to screw this right through here and into that. So now I want my drill bit to be a little bit smaller. But not too much smaller than the actual So you want your drill bit to be slightly smaller than the insert, but not so small that you can't heat it up and push it in. When you heat it up and put it into the plastic, it'll melt the plastic, and then the plastic, when it cools, will harden around the threads, so it'll grip. All right. So remember, do not drill that way. Put your drill on a vise. Now I'm going to heat going to sink that in. I got more than hot enough. So it's going to actually be a little on the loose side, so I'm going to have to put in some silicone there. And it had too much weight with the screw. So with the next one, I'm going to not heat it up as long. So I don't have any silicone sealant here right now, so I'm just going to put it back together, order some cheap silicone sealant, and then I'll do that at some other point. It just takes a couple of minutes to take this apart and put it back together anyway. And it's all the bottom, so it shouldn't be at a huge risk. I'll keep it covered anyway. Plus, what's the worst that could happen is I'll have to replace it. Which they've already made clear that they don't warranty their display. So, no big loss. Horrible design. Why they couldn't have just put 2 screws on here and add a removable mount like this in the first place is beyond me. Dropped a screw. Nothing worse than dropping a tiny ass screw. Took me like 30 minutes to find it. Now this is somewhat adjustable because there's a little play there. But there you go. The new mount correcting Mokwheel's design. Now, this mount is less than $10 on Amazon, and with the threaded inserts, I can just unscrew these M3s, and if this breaks, replace it as needed. I don't have to pay $70 for a new screen every time it breaks. So maybe Mokwheels could change their design to a less crappy design so that you could just replace the mount instead of having to buy a whole new display every time if your bike for some reason tips over or whatever, or if you just over torque it. They make some pretty substandard products. When I first bought the bike, the first thing that happened was I was putting on the rear view mirrors, and just screwing on the left side mirror, it snapped. And so the plastic that they use is just horrible. So it's unacceptable in a $2,300 bike. So that's pretty much why I'm pulling my that's why I no longer would suggest buying a Mokwheel. Their customer service is horrible, and some of their design decisions are unacceptable. All right, so now I'm going to put it on the bike, make sure it works, and that's about it. Fixing the Mokwheel display using a $9 piece off Amazon and some 3D printed parts and some extra bike supplies. All right, so now I'm going to just reinstall this. As I pointed out, I've got multiple other bikes. None of my other bikes are so poorly designed that they require buying a new that they require buying a new display every time your mount breaks. That's ridiculous. And, let's see, maybe So this doesn't look like it has all the parts to it. Luckily, I have extra pieces. So I am going to grab a piece that'll... So my cheap Chinese bike, or my... So, all of my other bikes are not so shoddily made that they require you may need all. If you look at most of the other ones, they are designed in such a way that if your bike was to have an incident and your display mount were to break, you could fairly easily, usually by just 2 screws, remove your display mount or your display from the mount and replace the mount. But for some reason, Mokwheels insists on making theirs a single piece, and it's absurd. However, it took me all of 15 minutes to figure out a workaround so that I could make my own mounting system using this less than $10 piece from Amazon. And it's replaceable. It's solid. I would say it looks just as good, if not better, than the original. The only test will be whether or not the display actually works after I mess with it. But I did not go into it, so I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. So there you go. So fixing the broken Mokwheels mount, and this is the crappy, by the way, this is the horrible Mokwheels mirror that will not stay up and flops down when you're riding it. But the new mount, sturdy, works fine. Cost me $10 plus the screws I already had, because I always keep extra screws in case the screw jiggles out. The inserts I keep for 3D printing. They're awfully handy to have. So this cost me $10. Mokwheels wanted $70 for a new display. Alright, so that's it.